Served 6 years.
How'd you get, when you went and served and then you returned, how was your experience coming back to the real life?
The real life?
The real life.
It was different. Well, a couple of things. They train you very well to think a certain way. And I remember the chain of command just being entrenched in me and then coming into the civilian world. And there's not a lot of respect for the chain of command, and I remember that bothered me. But the other thing that was kind of funny is I was an officer, so I was very used to being saluted no matter where I went. And so that's when you go into the civilian world and there's no separation of those that are in the more leadership roles and those that are not. You miss that because there's a lot to be said for that. It really puts everything into perspective as to who's making decisions and what have you. And I remember I had a funny story. I started working at Syracuse University, and the chancellor at the time was Buzz Shaw. And he asked one of the vice presidents if he could meet me. And I didn't know why. So I went to his office. I was really nervous. I didn't know what he wanted. And he said to me, "Juanita, I heard you were a Navy JAG." And I said, "Yes, I was." And he said, "Can I salute you when I see you on campus?" And it made me laugh because he just thought that was the neatest thing. And I said to him, I said, "It's funny you say that because every time I come through the gates of Syracuse University, I think about the gates that I drove through at Naval Air Station San Diego and Naval Air Station Jacksonville, and you become accustomed to a certain way of deference and respect and Navy values, and so I miss that. I miss that way of life. I really did.
You're female.
Mm-hmm.
You're Latina,
and
you work in a predominantly men-dominant field. How that was? What was that experience? Even though that, yes, you have a good rank, but how that was as a female minority and being a female that also was a Latina.
Right.
How was your experience?
It was
when you was in the military, and also when you came to the society,
civilian world. It was interesting. When I was in the military, there were not that many female lawyers at the time, and there certainly were not women Hispanics or African Americans. And I do remember being in a very white men's culture, and having to kind of acclimate to that. But you're very right. They don't see color. They don't see you are, all the same, and they treat you all terrible. But what I do remember, and it was something that struck me one day, was that I was a Navy prosecutor, and unfortunately, I was the one that, when the sailors and Marines got into trouble, I was the one that had to determine whether or not we were going to discharge them or keep them or whatever. And I remember one time in a particular case, the defendant was a Latino. And unfortunately, a lot of times defendants were Latinos and African Americans, and that often weighed on me. But this particular Latino, after the case was over, came over to me and said, "Ma'am, you're helping the wrong side," because I was on the government side. And I remember feeling bad about that I very much wanted to be a part of helping young Latinos acclimate into the military, and my role wasn't to do that. And so I decided after that to get more involved, and so I became what they call an EEO officer, Equal Opportunity Officer, and I volunteered. And what I did was I went from command to command, and I met with some of the guys and women, and I kind of tried to bond more with some of the Latino men and women, just to see where they came from and what was happening in their lives, and I felt very obligated. You know, there were not a lot of people who looked like me in their officer ranks, you know, or from the Southwest or from, you know, Puerto Rico or whatever. There just were not a lot. So I tried very much to make, you know, some of them feel comfortable as much as I could, but it was very unique. I mean, there just were not a lot of, you know, as I say, brown people running around in officer roles. There were a lot of them in the enlisted ranks, but not very many in the officer ranks. And that hit me one day, that I felt a little obligated to do something with that.
Do you feel identify with the Latinos in the military or non-military after you came? During the work of duties?
Yeah.
When you came out?
Sometimes. I mean, it's difficult in being an attorney, especially in Syracuse. There's not a lot of Latino lawyers. Where I come from in San Diego, it's, you know, everybody looks like me.